Good evening, everyone.
Hang on 1 second. We're going to start.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the July 26, 2023 meeting of the Town of Los Gatos Planning Commission. I'll call the meeting to order now. As we begin our presentation tonight, as we always do, I request that staff make a presentation on the town's policy of decorum and civility. Okay, thank you. Good evening, everyone.
The public is welcome to participate in the meetings, understanding that the purpose of the meeting is to conduct the important business of the town in an efficient and effective manner. For the benefit of the entire community, the Town of Los Gatos asks that all speakers follow the town's meeting guidelines by treating everyone with respect and dignity. This is done by following meeting guidelines set forth in state law, in the town code, and on the cover sheet of the agenda. The town embraces diversity and strongly condemns hate speech and offensive hateful language or racial intolerance of any kind at board, commission, or committee meetings. Town council and staff are well aware of the public's right to disagree with their professional opinion on various town issues. However, antisocial behavior, slander, hatred, and bigotry statements are completely unacceptable and will not be tolerated in any way, shape, or form at board, commission, or committee meetings. All public comments at the board, commission, or committee meeting must pertain to items within the subject matter jurisdiction of the town and shall not contain slanderous statements, hatred, and bigotry against non-public officials. The town will go through the following steps if a disturbance results from a member of the public not following these rules. If participating remotely, town staff may mute the individual with an explanation for the record of why muting occurred consistent with this policy. If participating in person, the chair may call a recess for violation of this policy, resulting in the immediate cessation of the audio and video recording and the commissioners exiting the chamber or meeting room. Staff will determine if the individual should be removed or if all members of the public should leave, depending on the extent of the disturbance. In the event that all public members exit, only the press would be allowed back in the meeting. Once the individual or individuals leave, the commissioners would return to the chamber or meeting room and the chair would resume the meeting. Persons disrupting a board, commission, or committee meeting may be cited for violation of the California Penal Code, Section 403.
Thank you for that presentation, and we'll next proceed to the roll call, starting with Vice Chair Raspy.
Here.
Commissioner Hanson.
Here.
Commissioner Thomas.
Here.
Commissioner Burnett.
Here.
Commissioner Clark.
Here.
And Commissioner Janoff.
Here.
And I am here, as appears. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance led by Commissioner Clark tonight. If you'll please stand. Thank you, and there are a few rules concerning tonight's meeting that I'd like to go over with you. Any person desiring to speak must first be recognized by the chair. All participants must speak from the mic at the front of the room or when called on in Zoom. All public comments shall be directed to the commission as a body and not to the audience. No person other than commissioners, staff, and the person having the floor shall be permitted to enter into the discussion. No member of the public is allowed to speak a second time on one item. And to assure the opportunity for all those desiring to speak before the commission, there's no yielding of time to another speaker. So next we want to discuss rules of public participation. As the Planning Commission conducts the meeting this evening, we encourage active participation by the public, which is essential to our democracy and to the important work of the Planning Commission. Public input is always very much welcomed and is carefully considered by the Commission. The public's participation can occur in several ways. Written Comments about the agenda may be submitted to the staff prior to the meeting, and we have a couple of those on our item 4 tonight. And during the meeting, there are 2 opportunities for members of the public to participate. The first will be during our verbal communications period, when an individual may speak on any topic that is not on the agenda for tonight's meeting. And during the hearings tonight on agenda items 3 and 4, any member of the public may speak on that item. And you'll be advised of the times when those opportunities exist. If you wish to address the commission tonight during either verbal communications or when we consider the agenda items 3 and 4, please raise your hand in the Zoom app, or for those who are here, complete a speaking card which are located in front of you on the benches. Please print your name carefully, and if you are speaking anonymously, just write down your initials. When you speak, I ask that you come to the microphone and speak directly into it because the meeting is being recorded. And when you are called to speak, please state your name and address for the record, or indicate if you're speaking anonymously. And in fairness to all speakers, your time is limited to 3 minutes. So we now come to the verbal communications portion of our agenda, where we will ask members of the public to address the commission on any matter that is not on the agenda for tonight's meeting. And staff will announce when your 3-minute time limit is up. And we have a card tonight from Mr. Gallardo. If you'd please step forward.
Good evening, esteemed members of the Los Gatos Planning Commission. My name is Rigo Gallardo. I am a carpenter from Carpenters Local 405 in San Jose. And as a carpenter representative of our hardworking community, I come before you today to highlight the crucial need for area labor standards that protect and uplift the workforce on future projects. I stand firm in advocating for a livable wage, accessible healthcare, accredited apprenticeship programs, and the opportunity for local hire, all while addressing the unacceptable exploitation of workers by general contractors hired by developers and the enforcement of tax fraud and wage theft. First and foremost, a livable wage is essential for all workers in Los Gatos. We pour our sweat and skills into building the foundation of this community. And it is only fair that we receive wages that allow us to support our families and thrive in the place we call home. Access to quality health care is a basic human right that should not be denied to any worker. By providing accessible health care, we ensure the well-being of our workforce and contribute to a stronger and healthier community as a whole. Accredited apprenticeship programs hold immense value for carpenters like myself and other skilled tradesmen and women. These programs enable us to hone our skills, pass on our knowledge, and ensure the next generation of workers is well prepared for the challenges that lie ahead. Accredited apprenticeship programs are a known escalator to the middle class. Local hire is not just about convenience, it's about fostering a sense of belonging and unity within our community. By prioritizing local hire, we create opportunities for workers to work where they live, reducing long commutes and contributing to a more sustainable environment. It is unacceptable for general contractors hired by developers to exploit workers and engage in tax fraud and wage theft. We must enforce strict regulations to protect the rights and dignity of our workforce, ensuring that they are treated fairly and justly. In conclusion, I implore the Los Gatos Planning Commission to champion these area labor standards and stand with us in building a more equitable and just community. By supporting a livable wage, accessible healthcare, accredited apprenticeship programs, and local hire, you affirm your commitment to the welfare and prosperity of Los Gatos workers. Let us work together to create an environment where carpenters and all workers can thrive, champion these where our hard work is valued and where exploitation and injustice have no place. Your decision on these labor standards will leave a lasting impact, and I sincerely hope you will choose to be on the side of fairness and progress. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Mr. Gallardo, before you leave, I'll ask commissioners if they have any questions for you. Seeing none, thank you for your presentation. Oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner Thomas.
Thank you for coming and speaking tonight. My only question is if you know of any other local towns or cities that have passed some area labor standards that we could maybe look
Yes.
to?
Redwood City
Redwood City?
and Berkeley. Berkeley just passed one.
Okay,
And there's more following in that suit.
okay. And then, yeah, so let me follow up with that too. And then what was the union that you were a part of?
Carpenters Local 405 in
Four.
San Jose.
Okay,
Yes.
okay. Thank you.
If you have a card, you can come up and speak in verbal communications.
I haven't filled it up, but I filled it up enough.
Can you pass it up here?
So I'm with the local 405, Carpenters 405, also with Rigo Gallardo, and the cities that have implemented those area standards are Redwood City, Menlo Park, and Foster City. And they have been implemented into their actual housing element, which I actually I sent an email about it maybe 3 days ago to the city manager. So those are the 4 cities that have that. And then Berkeley has implemented a hard hats and helmets for the city, for the workers, to ensure that all the workers that have a certain amount of money, they have healthcare in every single project. And if you have any other questions.
Are there any questions for the speaker? I don't see any. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you for your time.
I don't have any more cards, but is there anyone on Zoom? Mr. Paulson?
Thank you, Chair. If anyone on Zoom would like to speak under verbal communications, please use the raise hand feature. There are no raised hands, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Paulson. So we'll move on to the consent calendar. And we have items 1 and 2, which are approval of the minutes of our meetings of January 28th and July 26th. Before the Planning Commission acts on the consent calendar, any member of the commission may request that the item be removed. Are there any such requests? I see none. We'll now entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar. Commissioner Clark.
I move to approve the consent calendar.
And a second. Commissioner Janoff.
I'll second the motion.
I have a proposed amendment, which is minor, but I'm referred to as Vice Chair as well as Vice Chair Raspy, and request that that be corrected.
We can make that correction.
Oh, thank you. Okay. So is there any further discussion? If not, I ask that you raise your hands concerning your vote, and it looks unanimous. Thank you. So we next come to item 3, and after discussion with our town attorney, I'm recusing myself on this item based on actual or potentially perceived conflicts of interest because of my friendship and past professional relationship with Mr. Heckman, who has written a letter concerning the request in this item, which is Exhibit 6 on page 37 of the staff report. And I ask Vice Chair Raspy to conduct that portion of the meeting, and I will absent myself until it's completed. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Okay. We'll now consider agenda item number 3, requesting approval for modification to an existing subdivision application, PRJ-97-117, on property zoned HR-2.5, APN 537-24-030, located at 200 Happy Acres Road, APN 537-24-030. Subdivision application M-21-06, property owner Fred and Ferriston Tufan, applicant Noel Cross. Per staff, the proposed project is exempt pursuant to CEQA guidelines, section 15315. Initially, are there any commissioner disclosures with respect to this matter aside from the chair? Seeing none, may I have a show of hands from commissioners who have visited the site? Thank you all. Ms. Shootman, I understand you'll be giving staff report on this one?
Thank you and good evening. Before you tonight is a request for modification to the conditions of approval of an existing subdivision application. The applicant is requesting approval to remove condition 4, as the required cul-de-sac cannot be constructed in the location as shown on the approved tentative map due to the inability to obtain a permit from the California Regional Water Quality Control Board. Modified conditions of approval are being recommended by the Planning Division, Engineering Division, and Santa Clara County Fire Department to reflect the current project scope, town code regulations, and individual department requirements. Staff is recommending that the modified conditions of approval contained in Exhibit 3 would replace the conditions provided in Exhibit 4. The Santa Clara County Fire Department has provided 6 conditions of approval on the application. The attorney for the property owner has provided a letter objecting to the language of condition number 16 of Exhibit 3, requesting that the Planning Commission modify the condition to add new language recognizing the property owner's right to challenge future conditions of approval imposed by the fire department related to California Public Resources Code 4290. Staff has brought forward this modification to the fire department, who did not feel that the revised language was appropriate and felt that the provided language already included a statement recognizing compliance with fire safe regulations in effect at the time of application. The request this evening does not include approval of tree removal or site work to the existing private shared driveway. A future architecture and site application would be required for a new single-family residence and any associated site improvements. The applicant, however, cannot apply for that architecture and site application until the conditions for this previous subdivision application have been complied with. This completes staff's presentation, but we are available for any questions.
Thank you so much, Ms. Schutman. Any commissioners have a question for staff?
I wanted to ask our town attorney about the proposed modifications to, they were calling it condition 5, but it's condition 16 in our terms and conditions. I understand where the applicant is trying to go with this. We've seen other hearings where applicants were being asked to do extraordinary modifications to comply with the current fire regulations under PRC, I think it's 4290. So my question for our town attorney is, they're proposing to put in some language that says, to the extent that the town has, not adhered to, or had granted a waiver from these things. I mean, isn't that kind of something that we can't commit to, or can we commit to that, is my question.
So my reading of the request is that the request is really restating what's in the regulations, because the regulations currently include language that says an applicant has the right to appeal a denial of an exception request. And so the appeal process is baked into the regulations. And so what the way I see it, what the applicant is proposing is explicitly stating what's already in the regulations. And it's already included in the regulations, but I think the applicant is asking that it be explicitly stated. And so from the town's perspective, either of those approaches would satisfy the town's interest.
Okay, so we're not committing to grant any appeal. We're just saying that we're just saying that if we did, that that we would be honoring that for them.
Right. It acknowledges that the regulations contain an appeal process.
An appeal process. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Any other commissioners have questions for staff? Seeing none, it's now the opportunity for the applicant to come speak on this project, and we have a card from Noel Cross, I believe is the architect. Mr. Cross, if you can please approach, state your name for the record, and you have 5 minutes to speak.
Yes, my name is Noel Cross. I'm the architect. I'm working on behalf of the property owners. The item before you is a little unusual in that we're not here to approve a new residence. The matter before you tonight, that is what you're being asked to approve, is simply revised conditions of approval for a common driveway turnaround to serve this parcel, a parcel that was subdivided and recorded over 20 years ago. The original conditions of approval required a cul-de-sac and fire department turnaround at the end of Happy Acres Road at the bottom of the property. which required paving over the creek and installing a long drainage culvert. After getting nowhere with the California Regional Water Quality Control Board for several months, we have redesigned the roadway and placed a cul-de-sac and fire department turnaround in a more environmentally acceptable location at the top of the property, across from our driveway, or the only place we can access the property. This benefits not only our client, of course, but also benefits the two immediate neighbors as well. We've designed the new paving to be as far away from the edge of the ravine as possible, and yet still be inside the access easement, and as had been recommended by staff. This new roadway design conforms to the maximum fire department slope and width requirements and requires removal of 8 trees, which are located within the access easement. This design will make the access for emergency vehicles safer for all 3 parcels. Both immediate neighbors have signed letters allowing this ingress easement to be used for emergency vehicle access and also allowing for the tree removals. They've been very nice, very, very cooperative. We also have, the new design also keeps grading to a minimum, and especially as you approach the ravine. We have an arborist report and a slope stability study to support the project as required by staff. And I just want to say, after working with the Los Gatos planning and engineering staff for 2.5 years, we finally have reached a consensus, and we support their staff report with the one requested clause to alter the fire department language, as you no doubt have read in the attorney's letter. We hope to include this clause in the final conditions, and I'm certainly here. Our attorney, Barton Heckman, is on via Zoom, and if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you very much, Mr. Cross. Commissioners, do we have any questions for the applicant?
Yes, thank you. Perhaps for your attorney who's on Zoom, if the code already, as the town attorney says, if the fire department regulations already accommodate this appeal process, can you explain why you or your team, the attorney, feel compelled to change the language the way that is being recommended?
Well, he's the attorney probably can answer that better because it's kind of legal, and I was happy to have him around. So if he's around,
can we open up Zoom for the attorney?
Yeah, he's unmuted. So, Mr. Heckman, you can speak.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, fine. Please proceed.
Great, thank you.
Were you able to hear the question, first of all?
I was.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. So Bart Heckman, the Land Use Counsel for the applicant. Good evening, commissioners. So the answer to the question is really, it's an abundance of caution. The language proposed by the fire department could be interpreted as an agreement by the Tofans, the owners here, that even though they might have a right under your code to seek appeals, they're giving up that right at this point as a condition of this approval before we even get to the House approval. And so my effort is just to try to avoid that possible dispute down the road by making it abundantly clear in the condition, as your town attorney said, that the condition parallels completely the language of your ordinance, in that both include the right to an appeal what we feel is an unjust, unfair, or illegal condition. Did that answer the question?
Yes, thank you very much.
And thank you so much. Any other commissioners have questions for the applicant or counsel? All right, if you can have a seat, Mr. Cross. I'll now open the discussion to members of the public. If there's any members of the public who wish to be heard and have not yet filled out a yellow card, please let us know. Mr. Paulson, any members on Zoom?
Thank you, Vice Chair. Anyone on Zoom who wishes to speak on this item, please raise your hand. There are no hands raised, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Paulson. Well, I will then at this point give the applicant Mr. Cross or his counsel an opportunity to address the council one more time for, rather the commissions, for one more time for up to 3 minutes, should you desire. Okay, seeing none, I'll close the public portion of the hearing on item 3 and ask if any commissioners have questions for staff, wish to comment on the application, or wish to introduce a motion for consideration. Commissioner Janoff.
Thank you. I find the request for modification to item number 4 to be reasonable, and I would be in support of that. I don't have any objection to the language change for item number 16. If it makes no difference to the town and it makes a difference to the applicant, then I would be in favor of making those changes.
Thank you so much. Any other commissioners? Yes, Commissioner Hanson.
I agree completely with what Commissioner Janoff said. I would also add that the revised ingress will be a win-win for the situation from the previous proposal that was approved. So I'd be in favor of that. And after I heard the town attorney's comments as well as the applicant's attorney's comments on condition 16, I'm satisfied that that's okay to change that.
Thank you so much. Commissioner Thomas.
I just want to say that I also agree with my fellow commissioners, and I think that I am also in support.
Thank you so much. Any other commissioners wish to be heard? If not, it feels like there's a, oh, please, Commissioner Burnett.
Yes, thank you. So question, so when they apply for their architecture and site approval, because this is not for that, this is just for the cul-de-sac move, can't they at that time revisit this number 16 that we're concerned about with the fire?
So thank you for the question. I'll provide a little bit of clarification. So as part of the subdivision where we impose conditions of approval, which is what's being considered tonight, modifications to those previously approved conditions of approval. And Santa Clara County Fire does provide certain portions of those conditions. Others come from our Public Works Department and from planning and from building. And so the condition, I think in particular, that's under discussion right now to do with the fire regulations, that is something that came from Santa Clara County Fire. And it is really just acknowledging that any future improvement of the site will need to go through whatever the process is at the time that that application is filed. That has not yet been reviewed for redevelopment of this site, but compliance with those regulations would be part of a future application.
Thank you. Any other questions from commissioners? Or if not, is there a consensus towards a motion? Commissioner Hanson.
I move that we approve the requested approval for modification to an existing subdivision application, PRJ, is that right? -97-117 on property zoned HR 2.5, APN 537-24-0300, located at 200 Happy Acres Road, APN 537, let's repeat it. It's categorically exempt pursuant to CEQA guidelines. And the subdivision application is M-21-006 and consists of the modification of the ingress as well as the modification of condition 16. I can make the findings for CEQA. I can make the findings for the required compliance with zoning regulations in accordance with Chapter 29 of the Town Code. I can make the findings for required compliance with the hillside development standards and guidelines. I can make the findings for required compliance with the hillside specific plan. And I make this motion in conjunction with the terms and conditions that are in Exhibit 3, which includes the modified condition 16.
And also, will it include the plans as set forth in Exhibit 8?
And it includes the plans as set forth in Exhibit 8.
Commissioner Janoff.
I'll second the motion with the correction that the changes to item 16 are not currently in Exhibit 3, but we are making the motion that they would be changed in accordance with the applicant's request.
I thought it was changed, but if it is not changed, then yes.
Thank you for the motion and the second. I now call the question. Ask commissioners to raise their hand. All those in favor? Seeing everybody in favor, the motion passes. Ms. Armour, are there appeal rights regarding this?
There are, thank you. The decision of the commission can be appealed to town council by any interested person as defined by Town Code Section 2910-020 within 10 days on forms available online with fees paid. Final deadline is 4 p.m. on the 10th day.
Thank you so much. And if someone would be so kind as to locate the chair for item number 4.
Thank you, Vice Chair Raspy. And so we'll continue next with agenda item number 4, which is a request for approval for construction of an addition to a contributing building in the downtown historic commercial district, a conditional use permit for a restaurant use with alcohol service, variance for maximum floor area and reduced parking, and site work requiring a grading permit on property zone C-2 LHP, located at 25 West Main Street, APN 529-01-017, categorically exempt pursuant to CEQA guidelines section 15301, existing facilities. Architectural and site application S-22-039, variance application V-22-001, and conditional use permit U-23-002. The property owner is Reveal Corporation, and the applicant is Gordon Wong of GKW Architects, and the project planner is Aaron Williams. The staff has recommended approval on this item subject to the recommended conditions of approval, and may I have a show of hands from commissioners who have visited the property. There we go, unanimous. And are there any disclosures? I see none. So Ms. Walters, I understand you're giving the staff report tonight. Thank you.
Yes, thank you and good evening. The subject property is located at the corner of West Main Street and Park Avenue at 25 West Main Street. The existing 2-story commercial building was originally constructed in the 1880s and is a contributing building to the downtown historic commercial district. Before you tonight is a request for an architecture and site application for a 128 square foot 2-story stairwell to be located at the rear of the building. The Historic Preservation Committee met twice on this project last year and recommended approval of the changes at both meetings. The proposed project proposes exterior modifications, including the removal of an existing rear shed and modifications to windows and doors. The applicant is also requesting approval for on-site improvements to the rear of the property, which include an outdoor patio, deck, and landscaping, which will require a grading permit. The applicant is also requesting approval of variance to exceed the maximum allowable FAR for the C2 zoning district, where a maximum of 0.60 FAR is allowed, and this project proposes 0.79. Just to let you know, the existing building already does exceed the existing or the maximum floor area. There is an analysis included in the staff report that describes how this project would be compatible with the surrounding buildings in the area and would not have the largest FAR in the immediate neighborhood. The applicant also is requesting an approval of a variance from meeting the on-site parking requirements. The site has credit for 7 parking spaces in the parking assessment district and no on-site site spaces. The applicant did really work hard to try to make the parking work on site, but due to the constraints of the lot configuration and the long, narrow shape of the lot, that was prohibited. Additionally, the parking layout did not create a safe back out onto Park Avenue. The applicant has provided justification in Exhibit 5. And then the final request from the applicant this evening is approval of a conditional use permit to allow a restaurant with alcohol service and outdoor dining. The proposed restaurant use is located adjacent to a residential mixed-use building and multifamily building located across the street. At the time, there is no tenant for the proposed restaurant. The applicant has provided a summary of neighborhood outreach in Exhibit 8, and the desk item this afternoon provided 2 letters of support for the project. This concludes staff's report, and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Ms. Walters. And are there questions of staff by any of the commissioners at this time? Vice Chair Respy.
Thank you, Chair. Ms. Walters, thank you for that summary. I have a quick question on the CUP, specifically the proposed operating hours. I note that the applicant wishes to operate from 7 a.m. until 1:30 a.m. And I just want to confirm, that is that within town policy? Is it an aberration from what we generally have in town? Just your thoughts and explanations on those issues. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for the question. So initially, the applicant did apply to have longer hours. They were looking at from 7 a.m. to 2 a.m., 7 days a week. But then after further looking at the approved conditional use permits for restaurants within the neighborhood or the immediate neighborhood, they reduced the hours, also considering the adjacent uses with residential. So it is somewhat compatible with the surrounding conditional use permits. There is an array also having to do with the time that the different conditional use permits were approved. So maybe some that were approved a while ago might have longer hours tonight or this evening or currently. And this also was reviewed with the economic vitality manager and found that this seemed appropriate.
And one follow-up question, Chair, if I may, did police opine on the hours as well?
Yes, they did. And their only comment was to make sure that the you could see the back patio or back dining area from the restaurant, which you can.
Thank you so much.
Other questions for staff? Commissioner Hanson.
I'm pretty sure I know the answer to this, but the previous application that was approved in 2019 had housing. So I assume there's no net loss situation because the current situation before that application came in was no housing, and now there's no housing. So it's not like we lost anything. But I just wanted to make sure we asked the question since there's such a big push to put additional housing in.
Yes, that is correct. There currently is no housing, and then the former application, the property was sold, and so this is a new application for a different use.
Other questions? Commissioner Burnett.
Yes, thank you. So I don't know if this is time to ask this question, but this came before the Historic Preservation Committee, and there were many changes, many things we wanted protected elements, the transoms, the windows, how they were to be. I just want to know if that, it's probably going to be addressed here, but I want to make sure that it's still part of the construction and those elements that we requested to be maintained are still will be maintained.
Yes, thank you for the question. All of the comments that were made at HPC, those items had been included in the design and are in the attached development plans.
Thank you. And then I noticed they had commented on a door, a fixed door, and they said because in the previous, it was supposed to be restored door, if they could restore it, and then it would be a 9-light door. So I don't know if that is addressed as well.
So at the last, so the first time it went to historic preservation under this project, they did propose to remove the door at the corner and reestablish a historical door along the front elevation. Then they came back a second time after hearing HPC that it was important to keep that corner door, so they maintained that corner door, but have it as a fixed door because there is an ADA component with that corner and the elevations.
Yes, I was speaking of the new door that they're going to put in, not the fixed door in the corner.
So yeah, the working one would, the working one on the front, the new one proposed on the front elevation is per what was discussed at HPC.
Thank you.
Other questions for staff? I have a few, if I might. Can you address the reason for the town's requirement for demarcating the addition with vertical siding?
Yes, thank you for the question. So actually, that was the applicant's proposal, is the addition would be demarked differently with, instead of horizontal, it'd be vertical siding. Traditionally, the town does have materials and form match the existing, from the existing building to the addition. However, the the Secretary of Interior standards do show that you can either do a subtle treatment or a really a more pronounced treatment where you're really denoting that addition compared to the existing building. So in this case, the applicants have proposed just to show a subtle treatment with a change of the change of direction of siding. However, the siding will match in material.
And color.
And color.
Okay. And can you address the application of the town's policy on entertainment as it might affect the deck area and the neighbors?
So the current policy allows entertainment till 10 p.m. and then it would need to meet our noise ordinance. And so that's all the applicant is requesting at this time. So that's consistent by right.
And I can add to that that there is a late night entertainment policy, but a separate permit through the town manager would be required if they were requesting that for outdoor entertainment after 10 p.m.
That's excellent. Thank you. And it's probably in the staff report, but to what extent is the current building in excess of the FAR?
Yep, so what's allowed is 0.6 and it's 0.69 existing.
0.69, okay, that's right. It was in the staff report. And I think that's it, but I'll double check. Okay, I think that's all I had. And so we'll proceed and open the public portion of the public hearing and give the applicant an opportunity to address the commission for up to 5 minutes. And Ms. Walters, who's appearing for the applicant tonight? Okay, we have cards from Mr. Gordon Wong and Ms. Jenny Wong. Who would like to go first? Yeah, and there would be a 5 limit. Limit on both speakers, as I indicated before. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm Gordon Wong, the architect, and my wife, Jenny, will be presenting the project. Yeah, so you can go ahead.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Aaron, and thank you, commissioners. The project's goal is really to rehabilitize and preserve the existing historical building. We want to add a place of social value and provide accessibility upgrades, which is the goal of the exterior rear addition. And we'd like to propose a quality restaurant with an outdoor deck to enhance pedestrian orientation in the Los Gatos Central Business District. And really maintain the charm of the town. And so we're happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wong. Let's see if you have questions from the commissioners. I don't see any, so thank you for that. We will now invite comments on this item from members of the public. And please use the raise hand feature on Zoom. If you haven't turned in a card by now, please do so. And again, I'd like to hear your statement of name and address if you're willing to do that. And you'll have an opportunity to speak for 3 minutes. And are there any members of the public who wish to speak on this item? Is there anyone on Zoom? Mr. Paulson?
I don't see any hands raised on Zoom, Chair.
Thank you. So we'll now give the applicant another 3 minutes if you wish to, but you're not required. Okay, so no, and we'll now close the public portion of the public hearing and ask if the commissioners have any further questions of staff, wish to comment on the application, or introduce a motion for consideration by the commission. And I note that the approval will require several findings, findings and considerations in Exhibit 2, the recommended conditions for approval of the A&S application and variance, and the recommended conditions of approval of the CUP in Exhibit 4. So we'll start with any comments. Vice Chair Raspy.
Thank you, Chair. I'm generally in support of this project. I think it's going to be a great addition to the community, and I serve on HBC, and I'm glad that we are preserving through an adaptive reuse. I think it's an important property in our building, and so I don't have any problem with the variance to the FAR and the parking, as well as the grading permit that's required. My only, and I'll just say concern, is the hours of operation. I'll just open this up to my fellow commissioners. It seems to me that a 1 or 1:30 time limit on a hours of operating is slightly out of character for town of Los Gatos. Maybe we want to change that, maybe we don't. And maybe it's governed by our entertainment ordinances and our noise ordinances, and we shouldn't concern ourselves with it. But I wanted just to flag the issues as a point of discussion. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Hanson.
I would also note that on the report, or this table that's on page 6 of the staff report, was very helpful in terms of considering a request for exceeding the FAR, in that quite a number of the neighborhood analysis is already in excess of FAR, as was this property prior to the proposal.
Thank you. Commissioner Thomas.
Thank you. First, I would just like to follow up with what Commissioner Hanson just said, and that table was really helpful. And there are just a lot of buildings that meet or exceed the FAR in the downtown area because it is more dense. And I think that this addition doesn't really make a large difference because of the size of the lot and the shape of it, and what is there now is just essentially unusable space for like people and pedestrians. So even though the FAR will be increasing, it will actually be creating more space for people to gather. So I think that's just something that's important to think about. I did have a question for staff regarding the CUP hours, and I understand if we don't have this information, but some other local later night dining and establishments have opened somewhat recently. So when did Sidecar open and get their CUP? And then also Soda Works? Are those two that we have information on? Okay. And maybe Zona Rosa, if that's okay. Perfect. Thank you.
So thank you. I do have, I don't have a complete comprehensive list of CUPs, but ones that would be close by. So if you do have questions about what's approved there, that's great. So for the Soda Works, which is, that was approved in 2018. The hours of operation are Monday through Thursday, 11:30 a.m. to 11 p.m., and then Friday and Saturday, 11:30 to 12:30 a.m., and then on Sundays, 11:30 to 10 p.m. And then I believe your next question was about Sidecar. That was approved in 2009, and the maximum hours of operation there are 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. 7 days a week.
Okay, thank you. So I have a few thoughts on this. My first thought is that just because the CUP has these hours doesn't mean this is the hours of operation that this business is mandated to operate within. So I think that we should just always keep that in mind, that this would just be the maximum, and it is unlikely that a business, I think that it's probably rare that it's more common for a business to operate smaller hours than CUP hour to CUP hour. So that being said, I am comfortable and in support of this. I also think that we don't have a lot of late night eating and drinking establishments in downtown. And I know that it really can actually hurt our businesses that have existed for a long time. Some of our bars that exist that don't serve food, that have been grandfathered in, really appreciate when new establishments open up and stay open late because it draws more crowds and keeps people. And I know that some of those businesses aren't necessarily doing the best. So I think that this is a good opportunity, and I do think that we have some ordinances to abide by and some other things that protect the surrounding neighborhood or people from too much noise and rowdiness late at night. And so I'm in support of these hours personally for those reasons, but I'm also willing to hear what my fellow commissioners has to say.
Thank you for that input. And Commissioner Clark, excuse me.
Thank you. I'm in favor of this application. I think that they clearly detailed why they meet the requirements for this UP. I'm obviously, as you all know about me, sad to see ourselves lose some BMR housing, but I'm excited to potentially see us gain a new restaurant. I think that we can always use that. I love the back patio and everything, and I'm comfortable with them exceeding the FAR and the parking variance. I think that's very reasonable. And for the hours of operation, I think this is a perspective I can provide as the youngest commissioner, but I really think that we need more places that are open later in Los Gatos. I don't want to have to go to San Jose if I want to stay out late with my friends, but that ends up being the case a lot of the time because we do have a really limited amount of that in town, especially like Commissioner Thomas said, that serves food and everything. So I think that it's filling a community need, that it can help boost the Los Gatos economy. And also they did do neighborhood outreach and didn't receive any backlash. So I think that's important to keep in mind. It seems that neighbors didn't have any concerns regarding the hours. So those are my thoughts.
Thank you. And next, Commissioner Jenoff.
Yeah, in agreement with comments made so far. I would just like to add that per staff, we did get the approval from the Economic Vitality Director, Monica Wren. So that's an important endorsement for me as well regarding hours and the appropriateness of the operating hours in Los Gatos.
Thank you. Anything further? Commissioner Thomas.
I just do want to add on to Commissioner Clark's comments that I am not out late very often anymore because I'm not as young as she is anymore. But I have had incidences where I've been out to dinner and it's like my friends don't really want to go. It's like we don't really want to go to Carrie Nations or the Black Watch or like a bar, but we would like to go and like sit somewhere and relax for a little bit. And there's really just not that many options like past 10 p.m. So I agree that there's kind of like a gap in the market in downtown Los Gatos. And I do think that because of that, a lot of people go places like Campbell or downtown San Jose. So I do think that there's like a need for this in town with regards to a business perspective. So thank you for bringing that up. I did have a question for staff about the mural that is currently there. Is going to, okay. Yeah, if you could just explain what's going to happen to that, it would be great.
So the proposal shows, as you can see the attachment, that it would be a solid color that would match each elevation.
Commissioner Hanson.
I neglected to comment on the hours. I'm probably the last person that should comment because I'm never out that late or never even awake that late. But my only question, I'm in favor of going with the hours that are proposed, especially since they were reduced from the original proposal. But I wanted to ask about Thursday night. So is it typical to have the later hours on Thursday night in addition to Friday and Saturday?
Again, it's a range from each restaurant. Some are 7 days a week, and then some do go from Thursday to either Saturday night or Thursday to Sunday night to have longer hours. Thursdays people tend to go out longer on Thursday evenings.
Okay, that's fine.
Thank you. Well, I'm hearing general consensus of approval. Maybe we're ready for a motion. Commissioner Thomas.
Okay, let me get my, I move to approve the request for construction of an addition to contributing building in the downtown historic commercial district, a conditional use permit for a restaurant use with alcohol service, variances for maximum floor area and reduced parking, and site work required for a grading permit on property zone C-2 LHP located at 25 West Main Street, APN 529-01-017. I can make the following findings. Great, thank you. That the project is categorically exempt from CEQA, and that I can make the findings that I can grant a variance to exceed the maximum allowable FAR as required by Section 29 of the Town Code, and I can make the required finding for granting a variance of application for reduced on-site parking as required by Section 29 of the Town Code, and the required findings for a conditional use permit also required by Section 29 of the Town Code. And I find that the proposed building is consistent with the commercial design guidelines. And is there anything in an exhibit? All of the, including for the findings for Section 29, everything included in Exhibit 2 and Exhibits 3, 4, and 9.
Thank you for that complete motion. Is there any comment from staff about items that might have been missed?
Thank you for that question. The one thing that wasn't specifically stated was the considerations required in granting the approval of the architecture and site. That is also included in Exhibit 2.
Okay. Yes, I amend.
Okay, that'll be added to your motion. Is there a second? Commissioner Clark.
I second the motion.
Discussion? If not, call for a raise of hands of those in support of the motion. And it passes unanimously. Thank you very much. And good luck to you on a successful project.
And through the chair, I will state the appeal rights.
Thank you very much.
The decision of the commission can be appealed to town council by any interested person as defined by Town Code Section 2910-020 within 10 days on forms available online with fees paid. Final deadline is 4 p.m. on the 10th day.
Thank you very much. So we'll now move on to item 5. Ms. Would you be willing to give us some explanation about the continuance?
Yes, thank you. This project, we are not actually considering it at the meeting this evening. The applicant requested to reschedule to the Planning Commission's August 9th meeting. So that'll be your next meeting due to miscommunication of the meeting date on the project signage and notice cards. So a full staff report, written staff report will be provided at that time.
Thank you. And then we'll continue with the request for a report from the Director of Community Development.
Thank you. Because Town Council is not in session during July, we don't have anything to report since your last meeting.
Okay, that was easy. And next we'll come to subcommittee reports. In addition to the service on the Planning Commissioner, members of the Commission serve on several town committees or commissions, the Conceptual Development Advisory Commission, GPAC, which is now the Housing Element Advisory Board, and Historic Preservation. And are there any reports from commissioners? Commissioner Hanson.
Last week, the General Plan Committee, as well as the Housing Element Advisory Board, met on the same evening. The General Plan Committee considered the proposed modifications to our zoning, our general plan zoning, that would be needed to meet the requirements of the housing element for the sites that are in the housing element. And the General Plan Committee did recommend approval of those. The next step will be for them to go to Planning Commission and Town Council. And in addition, the Housing Element Advisory Board met in a separate meeting later that same evening And the purpose of that meeting was to continue the process of trying to get our housing element over the finish line. So we gave some additional feedback to staff. And we're also informed that staff has hired some new consultants that have been very successful at pulling some of these housing elements that are hung up with HCD over the finish line. And so we have them on board as well. And we'll be meeting again, as we discussed a couple of months ago, every month to review progress. And so we'll be meeting again in August.
Thank you for that important information. I know Conceptual Development Advisory Committee has not met since the last report. And Historic Preservation?
Yes, we had a meeting today at 4 o'clock. We had 2 items, one on Fairview Plaza and one on Bella Vista. We do have a new member on our committee now, Lee Quintana, who was previously on the Historic Preservation Committee, so she's very well trained and knows a lot. So that is what happened today. Thank you.
Thank you for that report. And we'll move on to any other matters that commissioners wish to bring before the commission tonight. I don't see any. And as always, I want to express my great appreciation to my fellow commissioners for their hard work and preparation, and to staff for their usual excellent work. And there being no further business before the commission, I call it adjourned.